Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Doom Eternal. I'm just kidding, it's Minecraft. This armor is just really goofy looking, but luckily I installed a new mod, and I can just make it disappear. Very easy. I made that armor in the last episode where I did a bunch of little projects like this path here. We made a nice little nether portal, we got Susan, but there's one of those projects that I didn't actually complete in the last episode, and that's what we're going to be working on today. I had wanted to make this farm look a little bit prettier because it's definitely the ugliest remaining section of my base, especially now that this whole area is prettied up. It really doesn't look that good to have the whole open cave behind it and stuff, but the reason I didn't just stick this on to the end of the episode, because I could have done a quick design, it would have taken only a couple minutes of video time, and it would have been great, but I realized this farm is very especially designed to produce the type of food that I'm currently using, and vegetable soup is very far from the best food in the game. So instead of just prettying up this area, I'm going to make it into a fully automatic farm for a much better food source. So what is the best food source in the game? Because if I'm gonna make a farm, I may as well go all the way to the top. And if we go into the JEI menu here and we search farm, it's going to show us all of the items in the Farmer's Delight mod. This has the thing I'm currently eating in vegetable soup, which is somewhere in here, but it also has a whole lot of really good foods. The best stats you're going to find is this. It's 7 hunger bars and 11 saturation, but there's a bunch of different things that have this stat. So I'm going to go ahead and cook all of them so we can do some compare and contrast. And luckily, I already have a full chest of random ingredients that took me far too much time to gather. So let's get cooking. First up, we've got the soups, or really, I should call these the things in bowls, because the first one is fried rice, and that is definitely not a soup. We've also got pumpkin soup, chicken soup, noodle soup, and baked cod stew. The next category, similar to things in bowls, is things on plates. We've got vegetable noodles, grilled salmon, squid ink pasta, and roasted mutton chops. And then the last category is the feasts. These are actually a category of thing in the Farmer's Delight mod because you can place them down. There's 4 of them. We've got stuffed pumpkin, honey glazed ham, roast chicken, and shepherd's pie. And those obviously aren't edible because they're blocks, so you have to get a bowl and take a serving of them like that. And I should probably actually put these on top of the correct one. So stuffed pumpkin, honey glazed ham, roast chicken, and shepherd's pie. And there we go. This is every single food that gives you 7 hunger bars and 11 saturation. So if they're all the same, how do we narrow it down more? Well, luckily, hunger and saturation aren't the only thing that these foods give. They are completely overpowered after all, so they also give you potion effects. Baked cod stew, for instance, gives you comfort for 5 minutes, and the only other potion effect, let's say stuffed pumpkin, gives you nourishment for also 5 minutes. So an easy way to narrow this down more is to get rid of all of the ones that don't give you the effect for the full 5 minutes, like grilled salmon that only gives it to you for 3 minutes. And because this is a food competition, the obvious best way to eliminate one is to eat it, because all of these are really quite good foods. Unfortunately, though, grilled salmon is actually the only one that doesn't give you its potion effect for 5 minutes, so I have to come up with a different way to narrow down our choices. And I think the best way to do that is to go comfort versus nourishment. These 5 soups and also fried rice give you comfort for 5 minutes, and these 7 remaining on this side give you nourishment. So what is the difference? Well, comfort essentially gives you a slow regen. Even if you have no saturation remaining down here, you'll still get the minimum amount. So if I take a little bit of damage right here by just jumping off of this thing, that heart will get healed back up using saturation. But if I had the comfort effect on right now, my hearts would continue to heal at the minimum pace. And I think that's about half a heart every 1 or 2 seconds. It's pretty slow. But that constant regen can be pretty nice, especially if you're all the way down at like half a heart and your saturation doesn't fully heal you. The comfort effect will finish the job over a couple seconds. Nourishment, on the other hand, freezes your saturation for 5 minutes. So instead of just giving you constant regen, it essentially saves the regen. Every action, like punching or sprinting and jumping, won't use saturation. It'll save that saturation for if you're missing hearts. So no actions you do in the 5 minutes will use anything until you take damage, in which case it'll heal you really fast with the maximum saturation that these dishes give you. So it's essentially slow regen over 5 minutes or fast regen whenever you need it in those 5 minutes, but in a much quicker burst. And that's not to mention that no other actions use saturation, so your food essentially lasts 5 minutes longer, and that makes it a very easy choice. All of the ones that give you saturation, or not saturation, comfort, have got to go. But I will enjoy their potion effect while I decide between the remaining 7. And at this point, they are functionally like identical meals. All that matters is the way they're crafted. And because of that, and the fact that none of the crafting recipes are like absurdly difficult, I'm going to eliminate these 3 because the other ones are just kind of cooler. Having the ability to place it down and then take bowls from it, I just think is cool. And you could argue that there's the added benefit of you get 4 servings per crafting recipe, but if I'm making an automatic farm, that doesn't really matter in the long run. So it's just between these 4, so let's look at their crafting recipes. And honestly, none of them are that bad. These are the 4 recipes, and they are all completely automatically farmable, so I've got no preference there. What I do have a preference for is not being bored, because oh my god, are some of these recipes boring. Let's look at stuffed pumpkin, for instance. It's just 7 different crops, and I could make 7 different crop farms, but trust me, I would be bored building it, and you would be bored watching it. So I'm not going to do that to either of us. Instead, I'm going to go with one of the other 3. And luckily, one of these 3 seems really fun. Honey glazed ham. Not only do I get to make a ham farm, which just sounds like a good time, I also get to make a honey farm, and that's just like, I like bees. Honey farms are fun. I do, of course, have to make 2 crop farms for the sweet berries and the rice, but that's not too bad. So this is the one I'm going to go with, and I got 4 different farms to make. So let's get on that. But like any good cooking project, before I actually get started, I have to do some prep work. But this time, it's not chopping vegetables, it's doing ridiculous amounts of terraforming. Because obviously, this whole thing is going to go where my farm currently is, but this area is ugly. Like, oh my god, it has this little thing that's sticking out, it's got this little thing that's sticking out, and of course, it has the giant empty cave with a giant hole in the roof. So before we even begin building anything, I want to make the terrain here look a lot better. So that's going to mean either removing or connecting these weird little tidbits and probably giving a false back to this cave and maybe even sealing up the giant crack that leads down into it. I'm not entirely sure how extensive I want to go here, but I'm going to go figure that out in a creative world, and I'll be back with you in a second. The answer is quite extensive, to the point that actually I made a schematic of the thing I built, and it like doesn't even let me do it. I've tried to click this button several times, as you can see, but it says the schematic exceeds the limitations specified by the server. Luckily for me, I am the server, and I'm pretty sure I can literally just change that number. So I need 275, so let's just go ahead and do 300. Why not? I'm sure that there's no reason... yes, save. I'm sure there's no reason that setting is a thing, and it's going to take probably a good long while to load, but at least it works. Well, that took a good 2 minutes, which isn't really that bad, but for something that normally takes seconds, that's kind of a long time. And this is the point that my game's going to crash, is this right click right here, and I want to catch it on camera if it does. When I place the schematic, the game is frozen. Okay, we're good. Sweet. And now that I've got it all positioned and stuff and in the schematic cannon, I can give it a material checklist and see what the damages are in terms of what resources I need. I'm going to guess this is going to be like 10 stacks of smooth stone. There's only like 4 materials that I've actually used in this thing, so this is not going to be long, but it's going to require some random things that it doesn't actually need. But yeah, oh, 32 stacks. Okay, that's a bit more than I thought it would be. Well, I think I have that much cobblestone, and I can pretty easily convert between the two, so I am going to go get half a stack of stacks of smooth stone. Well, I got that. I also got all of the other resources. This build is really just a bunch of stone, snow, a little bit of spruce logs for some trees, some dirt, grass, and a bunch of spruce leaves also for the trees. This material checklist has like a bunch of other things on it. I should probably actually give it those 2 dirt. And these are just like slight differences between my creative testing world and this world, like the schematic cannon's in a different place. And I was going to give it all of this snow, but then I realized that when snow is placed by the schematic cannon, like this one was here, it doesn't make the grass underneath it snowy. So this entire like hillside that I'm going to construct would not have the correct texture. So instead, I'm just going to place the grass and then let it snow, and that should work just fine. Speaking of the devil, it has started snowing, so I better get this project underway. I've gone ahead and given the schematic cannon way more gunpowder than it needs. It's not going to use 27,000 shots. I think I've got all of the settings correct. We definitely want to protect tile entities because I think that is in this schematic. It has parts of my base in it, so that is very important, but we're all ready. So let's go ahead and jump into a time lapse. Well, I'd say that turned out pretty good. I think it still looks a bit ugly, but on the scale of caves that I've terraformed, it's looking pretty good, because I'm not that good at terraforming. I've completely sealed up the crack in, like, the ceiling of the cave here, and you can kinda tell, because these trees are just, like, a bit too uniform, but I don't know, maybe that's literally just because I built it, so I know which sections are new and which aren't, so they look a little weird to me, but I think overall it looks pretty good. And then the cave itself, I have shrunk a ton. I mean, this is the old cave. It's gigantic, and I've made this whole facade to make it a lot smaller. It's still plenty of space in here, though, to do the entire build that we need to fit in, and I think now that we have blank canvas, we can actually get started on that. There's kind of 3 parts to this build for the 3 parts of honey glazed ham. We need crop farms for the sweet berries and rice, we need a ham farm, and we need a honey farm. And honestly, I'm definitely not going to finish all of that in this episode, and since I've already spent like half of this episode, or at least a lot of it, making this cave, I think I'm going to tackle the easiest one today, which is going to be the crop farms. They're just by far the simplest to make, especially with the Create mod, where it makes it very, very easy to make crop farms. So we're going to do that, and there's 3 of them I need to make, which seems weird because there's only 2 crops in honey glazed ham, but the thing is, to get a smoked ham farm, you either have to farm pigs or hoglins. I can't do hoglins because if I bring them to the overworld, they'll turn into zombies, so we have to do pigs. And to do a pig farm, we need carrots to breed the pigs, so we need to make a carrot farm too. So we're going to tackle that along with the sweet berry farm and the rice farm. The rice has to go in the water, which makes its placement very easy. It's going to go right here, and I'm thinking there's going to be a little path going along here that heads to like some sort of hut or something in the back, and we'll have sweet berries on one side of that path and carrots on the other. So with that in mind, I am going to go design some stuff and make 3 fully automatic crop farms. Okay, so I haven't made 3 automatic crop farms. I've designed 3 totally normal crop farms, and we'll get the automated stuff in later, but I want to do the pretty parts first. And I've got this resource list here, and normally I don't talk about resources except for in this episode, apparently. And this resource list is interesting because it has this thing called rich soil on it, and rich soil is really annoying to get. It takes forever to age. You make organic compost and then you let it sit there until it turns into rich soil. So we're going to play a little game of, can I complete the entire rest of the resource list before this chunk of organic compost decomposes into rich soil? Place your bets in the comments, although I'm going to be honest, I'm definitely going to finish the resource list first because this stuff takes forever. That was much closer than I thought it would be. I did win, just barely, but I kind of cheated. I went to an old growth pine taiga to gather like stacks of podzol, so I spent a while there, and this wasn't loaded while I was gathering all of this podzol, so I think it maybe would have won if it was loaded during that time. But you know, I technically win because it's not done yet, and my prize is I get to sit here and wait for it to finish composting, which was obviously super fun, and I was wrong. It was not close. I had to sit here for like half an hour for this thing to finish composting, but now that we have all the resources, let's go ahead and get building. And by building, I mean waiting for the schematic cannon to build it for me, although I have found something that I think might make it like a whole lot faster, because it's normally pretty boring to wait for the schematic cannon to build. If we go into the Create mod configuration settings where I was earlier to change this number, there's schematic cannon settings, and you can change the delay from shooting twice a second to shooting 20 times a second, and I'm going to try it, and since I'm not recording a time-lapse for this one, it's okay if the game crashes, but that should be all the resources. It still has plenty of gunpowder, So I'm going to click play, and this should be like a machine gun. Yeah, look at it. Oh, it's beautiful. This is amazing. This could be so... it's going to be so much faster. This is insane. It's not even, like, lagging my game at all. And this has taken, like, 1 minute, and it's almost done, which is crazy compared to... I guess this would normally take 10 minutes because it's going at 10 times speed, but this is... I am so glad I found that setting. Because really, I don't care if it's like overpowered or anything. I'm just AFKing through it most of the time anyway, so I may as well have it go way faster. And the build is done, although it broke a ton of the carrots because it places all the lights last, and there's not actually enough light in here to grow carrots. But it's pretty much just a bunch of crop farms. We've got carrots over here. We have... rice in the water there that is slowly growing, although some of it's going really fast thanks to that rich soil. And of course we have sweet berries over here, which are also growing crazy fast. I'm pretty sure the schematic cannon places them like fully not grown, so that is very good. Although there's a couple things that I need to add in other than the broken carrots. These carrots don't have water, as you can probably tell. And luckily sweet berries don't need them, so I think I just have to put in the water there. Oh, and I have this little canal that I want to put water into. And there we go. This section of the build is all done. I haven't really gone all out on the decor just yet. I mean, I've prettied up a lot of the little bits, but, you know, a lot of these cave walls still look pretty bland, and I want to fix that at some point. But because so many aspects of the build just aren't in yet, like the pig farm or the house, I'm leaving that stuff for later. We'll probably do it last, or at least it'll be built up whenever I build up the house and the other stuff. But for now, we have 3 crop fields that are all ready to be automated. So let's do that. I've already kind of sacrificed the easiest way to automate crops with Create, which is to have a little thing in the center with these mechanical harvesters spinning around and harvesting all the crops. But because I don't want anything to be above ground, I've made it very hard on myself. That method would use about, 3 mechanical harvesters for a field this size, probably. It would also have to be a circle, too, which adds to the ugly factor. But instead, I'm going to use a far less efficient method, but it is 100% hidden almost all of the time. I've already gone ahead and made a little, underground access room under the 3 crop fields here, because the plan is I'm going to take these mechanical harvesters, which, as long as they're moving and part of a contraption, they'll harvest the crops, and I'm just going to push them through the floor and into the crops, and that will harvest them. The way we're going to do this is actually remarkably simple, to the point that I might even be able to do it without cutting this clip. Put a rail, put that down, get a minecart on there. If we get a barrel like that, and then a mechanical harvester on top of that, this is going to be our little contraption. We can glue that together, and then activate that with a lever, assuming we have this on the right setting. And we can pick this up with a wrench. And now, because that's a contraption, we can have that inside of blocks. So what I'm going to do is take a piston, put it down, and we're going to put that little contraption on top of here and get rid of the rail. And you'll notice that mechanical harvester is inside of the block beneath this carrot. And if we activate this piston with a lever, it will pop up, harvest that carrot, and then we can have it pop back down, and that can go a lot faster than that, so you see it for like a split second every time it needs to harvest. It's harvested the carrots, and we have a few carrots in here, so that works really well. Only problem is I do have to have 1 full harvester per crop instead of like the 3 for this entire field. Luckily, I have already built a whole lot of them, which is way more than I need, and I don't have to have this whole system several times. I only have to have more of the harvesters. The barrel and minecart can all be used by just like 20 harvesters. So I'm going to go ahead and build that under both of these crop fields here. And it's a little annoying to build in terms of like gluing it together. You have to make this central rib of glue first, because it won't let you just glue 2 harvesters together like that. It says they're not connected, which, I mean, to be fair, it's right, but like it's still annoying. But then if you just like break this cobblestone and replace it with harvesters, it kind of just works. So I guess I shouldn't really be complaining. And now they're both in, and both of them should hopefully be working. If we pop up here and flick the lever, yeah, it goes up. And it comes back down. Beautiful. And all of those carrots are fully harvested. And we have a whole lot of carrots in here. That's like a stack every harvest, or significantly more than a stack, actually. So I'd say that one worked pretty well. And there's not actually as many sweet berries, so I don't know how well this one's going to work. But, and by that I mean how much it's actually going to, like, give us sweet berries. We get about half a stack from that one, which, it should probably still be fine. I'm just going to say that sweet berries grow faster with no, there's no backing behind that, but it feels like they should, you know, because like one growth cycle gets you a sweet berries, whereas these have to go through 4, although they are growing fast, but it should be fine to do that. But you'll notice I've only finished 2 of these. I haven't done the rice yet, and that's because the rice has one pretty major problem. Instead of just like talking you through it, I'm going to hop into a creative testing world and actually show you why this one doesn't work as well. So this is that exact same design, but with rice on top of it. We've got a harvester on a barrel, on a minecart, on a piston. And if we flick this, it harvests the rice, but you'll notice it kind of just pops off. That's because it's harvesting the bottom block of the rice here, and the bottom block of the rice doesn't really give you anything. It gives you one piece of rice that is promptly used to replant the rice so it can regrow, so you actually get nothing in the barrel. And since this whole thing is being done through the ground, there's no really convenient way to pick up these rice panicles once they're sitting here. So instead, we have to modify this little contraption a little bit. So that's what this contraption is. And I know I said modify a little, and this bit looks kind of a lot, but this is just a 5-second timer with a double piston extender attached to it. But the thing I've actually added is this little andesite funnel. So what it does, instead of just pushing this one from the rich soil into the rice, it pushes the whole thing 2 up so that the harvester hits the bottom of the rice and the andesite funnel is in that top block. And if we turn this on and wait 5 seconds for that timer, you'll see that when the harvester breaks the panicle, that thing is like right there to collect that rice panicle, and it ends up in the barrel. I've been testing this out quite a lot, and in that testing, I've realized that this little machine isn't 100% perfect. It works pretty well, as you can see, but if we wait here long enough, one of them will fail, and the rice panicle, I assume just due to lag, will not get collected, and it'll end up here. But honestly, it happens so infrequently that I'm totally willing to just completely ignore this issue. And because this is one rice thingy, it has a higher chance of failure than if there were a bunch of them, because whenever this goes up, it sits there for a second before going back down, so that any rice panicles from like an adjacent one have a chance to hit this funnel and get collected. So in the survival world, it should be an even more reliable system, and it's already pretty good here, so I'm fully willing to just go ahead and build this. And it really wasn't that much harder than the other 2. All I had to do was manage to get these things on top of all the harvesters, so now it's all in. It's got its double piston extender, and I even put timers on all of them. I've set that one to 30 minutes. I think I have this one at 5 minutes, and I've got this one at, I think, 10. I did a little bit of testing for each of these, and that one got 10, that one got like 6 or something, so I rounded it to 5 because I like, you know, multiples of 5. This one actually got 20 and not 30, but I've realized something very unfortunate about the rice, and if we like head up here, you'll see a lot of these are fully grown, but if it were to harvest right now, ones like this that aren't quite fully grown would get reset, because the harvesters only care if the bottom is fully grown, and all of the bottoms, except for like this one that isn't really out of the water yet, are fully grown. So if you have one that's like almost there, it harvests and it resets this one's progress, as opposed to carrots, where if it tried to harvest like this almost fully grown one, nothing would happen, and it would just get to keep growing in the next cycle. But with the rice, a lot of them will get reset every time, so I've given it a little bit more leeway just so we get a little bit more yield with each harvest. And I think it should have done a couple harvests by now. We've got 45 rice in there, and we've got almost 2 stacks of sweet berries. That's pretty good. And I think the carrots is going to be the most. Yeah, we've got like 5 stacks of carrots. This one's definitely going to overproduce, but I'm hoping that since it takes 2 carrots to make a pig, which is what the carrots are actually going to be for, hopefully that will kind of level out. But now that that's all done, it's time to make storage for these, and I'm going to be using something called item vaults. They're pretty easy to make, and you can use up to 81 of them in a multi-block assembly, and that gets you 100,000 items of storage, which I definitely don't need. That's super overkill. So instead, I'm going to tone that down to 8 item vaults in a multi-block structure, which will get me about 10,000 blocks, which is still too much, but like it's a lot more reasonable of a quantity. And most importantly, I don't have to press 10 stacks of iron to make them because, well, I don't actually have 10, so one is much nicer. And along with the half a stack of barrels, these things are pretty easy to make. And now they're all in place. I've also added a bunch of other stuff around them. This is the item vault itself, but I've also got this little thing on the side of each one of them that's counting the number of items in it and putting that here because you can't just right-click on them to access the inventory to know how much is in it. So I've added that. I also added this in case I ever need sweet berries for some reason, just because you can't access the inventory. I have it output just a little bit there. And I've done the exact same thing for the carrots over here, and the rice is, of course, special and is way more complicated. The thing we're actually farming is rice panicles, but we want the rice item, so we have to mill that down into rice. You also get straw as a byproduct of that, so I've made a storage container for that too, because straw is a super useful resource, mainly for making this rich soil stuff. You need a bunch of straw for it, so having that automatically farmed is super nice. It's all powered by this really slow windmill, which is turning it like at an excruciatingly slow pace, but it is fast enough to keep up with our rice production, so that should all work just fine. And now that we've got all of these crop farms all done, I think I'm going to go ahead and end this episode here. We will finish up this whole project, well, hopefully finish up this whole project in the next episode, but for now, like if you liked, subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you